Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar session, Too Many Tests, Too Little Time, a Smarter Way to Tackle Manual Regression Testing. I'm Jamie Motherall. I'm a functional testing specialist and product marketing manager here at Parasoft, and today I'll be moderating our discussion. Now, let's face it, manual testing, it often gets a bad rap. But the truth is, it's still a vital part of quality assurance. In fact, industry research shows that a large share of software testing today is still being done manually, and for a good reason. Manual testers bring something automation can't fully replicate: context, intuition, and critical thinking. But here's the reality check. Development cycles keep accelerating, and AI is driving a massive productivity shift across teams. Amid all of this, manual testers are feeling the squeeze. Releases are faster, automation is scaling, yet regression testing, especially manual regression testing, still demands time, focus, and precision. So how do we make manual regression testing keep pace and stay valuable in this new landscape? That's exactly what today's discussion is all about. We'll dig into the challenges that manual testers face, and we're going to explore smarter strategies to modernize regression testing. And to help me unpack this topic, I'm thrilled to introduce our two panelists. So first up, I'd like to introduce Nathan Jakubiak. Nathan is the Senior Director of Software Development here at Parasoft. Nathan, would you like to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. I've been at Parasoft for almost 25 years now. I oversee a number of different teams here, primarily focused on functional testing, also Java-based unit testing. So I oversee a lot of what we do here at Parasoft, and excited to be here.
Perfect. And we're looking forward to the insights you're going to be sharing, so thank you for joining us today. Next up, I'd also like to introduce you all to Wilhelm Hawker. Wilhelm, it's always a pleasure to have you join for these discussions, especially looking forward to your insights because you work so closely with our customers and so closely with QA teams. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So Wilhelm Hawker, I joined Parasoft 17 years ago, so not quite the tenure of Nathan, but getting up there. Also similarly work in the same product lines as Nathan, our functional solutions focused on APIs, testing, service virtualization, etc. And I manage an enterprise solution engineering team, really focused on helping our customers be successful with the solutions.
Mm-hmm. Really looking forward to digging into this discussion with you as well, Wilhelm. Yeah. All right, well, let's start. We're going to talk about the challenges of manual regression testing. And Nathan, I think that you're the perfect person to kick us off a little bit about this subject. Could you break down for us a little bit about why manual regression testing in particular is so tough, especially when releases are moving fast?
I think in general, QA teams are focused on testing new functionality. So as the development teams are building new capabilities, they're primarily concerned with making sure the new functionality works as expected. Mm-hmm. And so they don't necessarily have a lot of time to test the existing functionality, but as we know, anytime you change a product, you inevitably are touching existing code and you have the risk of introducing problems. So there's a couple of things that can happen. One, they don't run any regression tests during the release cycles. Maybe the regression testing is left for the end, which if you leave it till the end, then you will have, potentially you're going to be finding issues right at the end, which can delay your releases. So you get unexpected problems. Sometimes, ideally, you would want to run regression testings as you go, but then the big question is, what do you run? How do you know what tests to run? And if you're going to choose something, what do you choose? And so teams, in those cases where they decide they need to run something sooner, they might ask development, well, tell me, what did you change? And development doesn't want to risk telling them too little, so they'll say, well, test all of modules A, B, and C, but maybe they barely touched A, and most of the changes were in C, and then QA doesn't want to be the one on the hook, so they end up testing everything, but it ends up being way too much and was inefficient. Yeah. So that's one thing that can happen. I think the other extreme is, well, we don't know what to test or we don't have time, so we don't test anything, and it's left for the end. And I've already talked about what happens in that case. So.
Yeah, two kind of tough choices to make there. Wilhelm, is there anything you'd like to add, seeing as you're working with our customers very closely, working with QA teams every day?
Yeah. So retesting everything when a project is moving fast, where there's constant code changes, it's pretty much impossible, right? And teams often don't or can't automate every test that they have. So there's some amount of manual testing that always happens from like a regression perspective when they're looking at their software releases. And this can become especially acute or apparent when we're talking about like patch testing, right? There's a critical defect that got addressed. It's not your normal release cycle, but you need to get the fix out to production quickly. And so what do you retest? What do you revalidate? That can get tricky for a lot of the points that Nathan was bringing up earlier. And so this time constraint, it becomes important to focus on what are the right subset of tests from all the tests you have. And there's various strategies that take shape for how you go about subsetting that process, right? And there's manual approaches that we've seen organizations take with tagging and sort of trying to figure out, based on certain tags, what to subset in that compressed time window. But ultimately, it can be inefficient. And so we're here to talk about what to do about that.
Yep. So how we can really help people to accelerate and help people really focus their testing in a very efficient manner. Which brings me kind of now to the next topic I want to talk about. Wilhelm, as your head of our technical teams at Parasoft who are focused on solving our customer challenges, I want to start with you on this next one. How can testers run fewer tests but still feel confident knowing that no critical defects are slipping through?
If I really think about it, getting that high confidence of what to test and what not to test really has to come from data. And to alleviate that bottleneck of manual regression testing, you can use code coverage where as you're running your test sessions, we capture code coverage for all those tests that are being performed. And then using that data, we can determine what are the right cuts to make for tests when some code changes, right, when a new build comes in. And so that's really what this kind of automated subsetting process is all about, is it's using code coverage, looking at changing code, and using that data to kind of deterministically or accurately measure which tests are safe to skip when you're looking to retest.
So it's that intelligent kind of data-backed test selection. Nathan, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think the nice thing about it is when a team would get a new build, the system is automatically able to identify, based on the code changes and the previous data that we collected about which tests are associated with the code changes, the system's able to identify, hey, these are the tests that you need to rerun, and you can be confident it's these tests and only these tests that we need to run.
So really they're not having to wait for like a regression window anymore. They're able to get that immediate feedback, know exactly with high confidence what tests they need to execute.
Right, like we were talking about during a development cycle, they might not know what test to run. Well, this tells you exactly what test to run, and maybe it's only a very small set. Maybe it'll only take an hour or two, whatever it is. And so now they're empowered to actually do that testing up front right away.
Okay. So now that we've kind of broken down a little bit of what this looks like, what the solution is, that data-backed intelligent test selection, I think this is a great time for a technical demonstration. Wilhelm, you've prepared a little demo for us, so let's switch on over to the technical demo.
In this demo, I'm going to walk you through how Parasoft captures code coverage from manual tests and uses that data to identify which test scenarios are impacted by recent code changes to enable a more efficient manual regression testing process. Here, we see Parasoft CTP, and I'm showing you an environment configuration that shows a Parasoft coverage agent that's deployed on my running application Parabank in my test environment. This setup allows CTP to remotely start and stop data collection from the coverage agent, capturing which parts of the application are being exercised as I perform manual tests. From the perspective of a tester, here you can see that I've imported some tests for my demo application Parabank, and we can see that there's an existing test session here that was run yesterday against version 1 of Parabank. And all the tests passed except for this request loan test. And this brings us to the current moment, where a new build of Parabank was recently deployed into my test environment. You can call it V2. And here's the challenge. There's no time to retest the full regression suite of manual tests for this current build of Parabank. We have a tight timeline because development is pushing a fix for a high priority defect that was found in production, and Parabank's customers need this fix as soon as possible. Now, obviously, I need to rerun this failing request loan test, but without rerunning the full suite, there isn't a reliable way for me to know which other tests got impacted by the new build development pushed into the test environment. And so this is where Parasoft's test impact analysis comes into play. Because we gathered code coverage from the previous test session, Parasoft can now compare the new build against the previously captured coverage data, where CTP and the coverage agents automatically identify which parts of the code have changed and map those changes back to the test cases that originally exercised those areas. As a result, I can see that bill pay test has been marked to be re-executed with the spinning arrow icon here. And so instead of guessing which test to rerun or being forced to rerun every test, I can now start an optimized test session that only reruns the tests that have been impacted by code changes since the last time I ran them. And to get started, I simply start a new session, and let's call it Regression V2, and we'll give it today's date. Okay. And so here, the impacted tests clearly indicated with arrows, while the tests that remain validated from the previous test sessions are shown with the green check marks. So we can go ahead and start testing. So we'll come in and do our bill pay test. Put in our information. And so this targeted approach that I'm showing you here, this allows me to focus my efforts on areas most likely to be affected by the recent code changes without rerunning the entire regression suite. It's going to let me zero in on the modifications that were actually made, allowing me to save time. And with traditional manual regression testing, it's hard to find that balance. You either spend too much time retesting everything, or you risk missing defects by testing too little. And so with Parasoft's test impact analysis, it kind of strikes that perfect middle ground, ensuring that the right tests are executed at the right time. So we'll come in here and we'll finish up our test session. And so once I've completed the test session, CTP confirms that the environment is fully validated and I can confidently greenlight the new build. And so by leveraging test impact analysis, QA teams can perform this incremental manual regression testing throughout the sprint, right? Reducing redundant effort, accelerating feedback, and improving overall testing efficiency. Right? Instead of running the full suite, I just needed to run 2 tests to get the confidence I needed that the changes development made were good to promote into production. And so that's how Parasoft's test impact analysis helps teams make smarter decisions about which manual tests to re execute after a code change, saving valuable time while maintaining confidence in their software quality.
Now that we understand how test impact analysis would fit into the manual testing workflow, and we've seen that short demonstration from Wilhelm, let's talk about the benefits gained. So Wilhelm, let's start with you again. What is the biggest wins teams can see from this focused test selection? Is it time savings? Is it the impacts to quality? Or is it something else?
So I think time savings and quality are both obvious factors in what the benefits are. When you can reduce what tests to run while keeping your confidence high that you're testing the right things, you can really better utilize that testing to test in the right places, test more often, where you see that gains from both a time savings perspective as well as a qualitative perspective. But I also want to talk about a more intangible win, which is reducing stress. So when testers are in that testing phase right before release, that's when a lot of pressure is put on the team to find issues or report them to development, make sure that they're releasing the highest quality software that they possibly can. And so giving testers the peace of mind that says, hey, you can safely focus down your workload to these subset of tests and, just focus there, it gives them more time to really do a better job, right? They're not always feeling like they're behind because there's so many tests that they have to perform in a compressed time window. Yeah. So I think that reduction of stress or stress management can be another factor that really helps.
For sure. I think you talked about confidence. I think the confidence can extend not just to the teams themselves, but it actually can extend up to management as well. Because now the management can know that because of the data, we know, we know that they did the appropriate amount of testing. The system actually will tell us, these are the tests that need to be run and were they run or not. And we know, and it aggregates it over time. And so the upper level can also tell, hey, we did the right level of testing to make sure this release is good. In addition to the time savings, so the time savings, I think it ends up compounding on itself, because if you have additional time, then maybe the testers have more time for exploratory testing, or maybe they have more time to actually build automation that they don't normally have time for, which obviously down the road, that contributes to higher quality, it contributes to automation, which saves more time in the future. So these things can start compounding on each other.
Yeah, it definitely accumulates. And I really appreciate that, both of you kind of brought up not just the impact to the business as far as value, but especially Wilhelm, I love that you brought in the individual tester because when we look at how are we able to help teams become more efficient, it's not just looking at what is the business value, how can we help them to get faster releases, high quality releases, but also how is the software going to impact the everyday lives, making it better experience for the testers. It's something we really need to keep our eye on, because at the end of the day, it's people that are doing this testing. We want to make their lives better, improve everything. Now, we've been discussing test impact analysis in the context of manual regression testing up till now. But these capabilities can also be applied to automated testing. So next, Nathan, I think I'd like you to start this one off for us. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about how test impact analysis works in CI/CD pipelines and the impact it can have on automated testing across the SDLC.
Yeah, so this technique, test impact analysis, can be applied across any kind of a testing practice. It doesn't just have to be manual testing. So you can apply it to unit tests, you can apply it to API tests, web UI tests, any kind of end-to-end microservice-based tests. And it works just the same way. When you run your full test suite, you're collecting code coverage with our coverage agents. And those coverage agents are associating the individual tests with the code that they're covering. And then when code changes, the system's able to identify which automated tests to run. And it doesn't just tell you what they are, but it actually, at execution time, runs just that subset of tests. And so that, that obviously limit the amount of tests that you need to run. So a common workflow would be to integrate this into your CI/CD pipeline. So, in a pull request workflow, you often want to run a certain set of checks to validate that code is good, right? And there might be some things that you're able to integrate in because they run fast, and there's probably other types of tests that you can't run. So you might want to run static analysis. You might want to run unit tests, but depending on how long they take, you may or may not do it. Same thing for different kinds of API tests or other functional tests. But with test impact analysis, because it limits down to just that exact subset of tests, in many cases you actually can run those tests in your CI/CD pipeline, giving you better validation of that code before you merge the code into your main branch.
And also, I would say that the value of test impact analysis from a CI/CD or automation perspective is also related to sort of the cost and complexity of the type of testing that we're talking about. So, manual regression testing being at the top of the list because it takes the most time. Similarly, if you think about the testing pyramid, automated end-to-end UI tests being the next culprit in terms of time and complexity for testing, and then kind of going down the pyramid to unit tests, which generally are execute really quickly. So that's one thing to consider, is the value of the test impact analysis is sort of related or proportional to how expensive or costly the type of testing it is that you're trying to optimize. The other point that I think is important to think about is that this technology is test framework agnostic. So whether you're using Selenium or Cypress or Playwright, or pick your favorite testing tool, it really doesn't matter from a test impact analysis perspective. The solution is built to kind of work in an agnostic way, and what really matters is the ability to measure or capture the code coverage of the application while testing is taking place.
So really, in the end, test impact analysis is optimizing regression testing, both from a manual perspective and automated perspective. And you want to keep in mind how resource heavy, or resource intensive and costly those test cases are when you execute them, because that's really going to give you the biggest impact, the more costly they are. All right, well, this was a great session. Thank you guys so much. I really have appreciated your insights and just digging into this topic with you both. I think it was very, very helpful for those out there looking to optimize their manual regression testing practices. Now, before we close out today's session, I do want to take a moment to thank the audience as well. Thank you all for joining us. We do have our live Q&A session coming up in just a moment. So if you do not yet have your question into the Q&A box, please make sure you do put that into the box now. Now, in case you're wondering about how to get started, you'll see on the screen that we have 2 QR codes available for you. One takes you to our test impact analysis solution page. That's a great way for you to explore a little bit more how test impact analysis works for both manual and automated testing workflows across the SDLC. So if you're looking to just increase your knowledge, great place to start right there. Now, the other is to let you request a custom demo or evaluation with us. If you're the type that you are ready to get your hands on it, you want to see how this can improve your team's agility, your velocity when it comes down to manual regression testing, then I urge you go ahead and fill out that form, follow that QR code, and we'll reach on out to you, set up a time so that we can talk to you about setting up an evaluation. All right, we do have some questions coming in, so let's turn on over to our live Q&A. Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
All right.